Good afternoon, and thanks so much for joining us today. My name is Jonah Kaplan. I'm the Assistant Program Manager for the SciTechsperience Internship Program, and I'm here today with my colleague, Becky Siekmeyer, the Program Director for SciTechsperience. This webinar is part of the SciTechsperience webinar series, and our topic today is how to make the most out of SciTechsperience once you've registered with the program. We'll dive into the content of our webinar in just a moment, but before we get started, let's cover a few housekeeping items. If you've dialed in by phone and haven't already done so, please select Telephone in the control panel and enter your audio PIN in the audio panel to eliminate echo. If you're having any technical or sound issues, please contact GoToWebinar at the link shown on the screen or give them a call at 1-877-582-7011. You have all joined the webinar in listen-only mode, which means everyone but the presenters are muted. You're still welcome and encouraged to participate in today's webinar. Please use the questions window in the control panel at any time. Becky will be monitoring this box throughout the webinar and will be sure to let me know when questions come up. If you'd like to review this webinar later, a recording will be posted on our website, scitechmn.org. We'll also send a follow-up email with a link to the recording. As I mentioned, today's webinar is part of the SciTechsperience webinar series. You may or may not be familiar with what SciTechsperience is, so we'll very briefly cover the basics. SciTechsperience connects college STEM majors to small, for-profit Minnesota businesses in science, IT, engineering, and manufacturing sectors for paid internships. This is a free, statewide program funded by an appropriation from the Minnesota State Legislature. SciTechsperience has been around since the pilot launched in 2012, and since then we've placed more than 700 students in paid internships. In 2017, at least 250 students will be hired through the program. Employers are provided with a cash reimbursement of 50% of their interns' wages, worth up to $2,500. This reimbursement serves as an incentive to hire and in some cases enables companies to hire interns when they otherwise wouldn't have. Are there any questions before we get started? All right, today's webinar is designed to help you, students, make the most of your experience with the SciTechsperience internship program. Students often ask me what their odds are of landing an internship once they've registered with the program. The information in today's webinar will help you put your best foot forward and increase your odds of finding a great internship through the program. We'll also share tips for how to make the most of your internship and what to do when the internship ends. Here's the general outline of what we'll cover today. We're going to discuss accessing the SciTechsperience job board, leveraging search tools on the job board, best practices for reaching out to employers and preparing for interviews, how to make the most of your internship, tips for the end of your internship, and we'll leave time at the end for a question and answer. If at any time you find yourself with a question, again, please feel free to type it into the questions box, which Becky will be monitoring throughout the webinar. We'll be sure to address all of your questions. And before we dive in, let's pause for just a moment to take a quick poll. We're wondering, since registering with the program, have you logged in to your SciTechsperience account at scitechmn.org? So we'll launch the poll, and your options are, yes, I've logged in multiple times, yes, but only once, no, and I haven't registered or my registration was not yet approved. So we'll leave this poll open for about 20 seconds, and we would love to get full participation from everyone who's on the webinar today. So again, we're wondering, since registering with the program, have you logged in yet to your SciTechsperience account online at scitechmn.org? And your options again are yes, you've logged in multiple times, yes, but only once, no, or no, you haven't registered or your registration was not yet approved. And we'll leave the poll open for just another few moments, try to get as much participation here as we can. And it looks like we're at 100% participation. That's fantastic. So let's close the poll and take a quick look at the results. So it looks like 80% of you have registered and logged in multiple times. That's fantastic. And 20% have logged in but only once. Well, that's great news, and in that case the The next brief section of our webinar is going to be review, but helpful review. So as most of you already know, the very first step is to visit scitechmn.org and to click the login button in the upper right-hand corner of the screen. You can access the SciTech website from your mobile devices as well, but I recommend using a computer for an optimal experience with the job board. After clicking the login button, you'll be asked to provide your SciTech username and password. If you've forgotten your password, there is a password recovery button that will generate a temporary password and email it to you. And this is important. Make sure to check your junk or spam folder if you don't see the email in your inbox right away. Once you've logged in using the temporary password, you can easily reset your password to whatever you'd like. And I'm getting a note from Becky. We have a student who has a question. The student is wondering what to do if they can't remember their username, as there's no username recovery button. That's a great question, and students can always feel free to contact me if they can't remember their username or if they're having trouble logging in for any other reason. I'll share my contact information at the end of the presentation, and please feel free to reach out anytime. Once you've logged in, you'll see the SciTechsperience job board. Maybe you're already familiar with the job board. If not, I'm glad you're with us today. The job board is the place where all of the SciTechsperience internships can be found. Your school may have an online job board of some kind. For example, the University of Minnesota has a system called Gold Pass. The SciTechsperience job board is similar in function to other online job boards. There's a list of job postings with descriptions, expectations, and details about how to apply for the position. As of today, April 12th, there were 114 jobs on the SciTech job board, with new ones pouring in every day. The SciTechsperience program is targeted specifically to STEM majors, and therefore the job board will only include STEM internships. No sales, marketing, or business administration positions will be found on this site. Still, with over 100 positions on the job board, it can be very difficult to narrow the list to the internships you're truly interested in. One strategy for narrowing your search is to sort the job board by job title, location, industry, or start date. You can do this by clicking the header for whichever criteria you would like to sort by. In this screenshot, for example, I've clicked the city header to sort the jobs alphabetically by location. If my apartment is in Bloomington and I'm looking for an internship nearby, I can now see all of the Bloomington companies in one place. You can also save jobs to your favorites list by clicking the star to the left of the job title field. And to access your favorite jobs, you can look at the left side of the screen where there's a Favorite Jobs tab that will display the list of favorite jobs that you've saved. A more advanced way to narrow your job search is to use the search functionality of the job board. This enables you to identify specific skills, characteristics, or other keywords you're looking for in an internship. Let's take a look at an example of how a keyword search can be helpful on the SciTechsperience job board. I'm interested in internships that will help me build my JavaScript programming skills, so I'm going to do a keyword search for JavaScript. As you can see, the job board has been limited to 8 of the original 114 postings. Rather than sorting through all of the IT computer technology internships, I can now look through only the jobs that mention JavaScript, the skill I'm most interested in improving. In fact, if you take a look at the 4th internship on this list, you'll know that it's categorized as an engineering services internship. I may never have thought to look at it, but now that I know JavaScript is a part of this internship, I can check it out and see whether it's an internship I might be interested in applying to. Once you've identified a job you're interested in, the next step is to reach out to the hiring manager listed on the job posting. Every internship posting on our job board will include contact information like you see here. And I'm hearing from Becky that there's another question coming in. That's great. A student is wondering whether there's any way to apply to internships directly through the website rather than contacting a hiring manager. That's a great question, and the answer is no. The way to apply for internships through SciTechsperience is to contact the listed hiring manager directly. And in many ways, this is to your advantage, as you'll be getting in touch with a real human being rather than submitting a contact form that may end up in a stack with dozens of other submissions. So great question. Before we switch gears to talk about best practices for reaching out to hiring managers, let's take a look at our second poll. So for our second poll, we're asking, have you started reaching out to hiring managers yet through SciTechsperience? And your options are yes, I have, no, not yet, or I didn't know I was supposed to do that. So we'll keep the poll open for about 20 seconds, and it looks like we're getting some great participation already, and we'd like to see everyone participate in the poll. And wow, in record time, we've reached 100% participation. That's fantastic. So let's close the poll and take a look at the results. It looks like 60% of our attendees have started reaching out to hiring managers through SciTechsperience, and 40% have not. So that's great. Thanks for your participation. For those of you who have started reaching out, this will be some helpful guidance on how to maybe improve your strategy for reaching out. And for those of you who have not yet started reaching out, this will be a great introduction to how to best approach that. So let's move on now to best practices for reaching out to hiring managers. Before reaching out to a hiring manager, be sure to read the job description thoroughly to make sure it's a good fit for your skills and your interests. If hiring managers receive applications from candidates who clearly haven't taken the time to read the job description, they're less likely to respond. Once you've decided that an internship looks interesting and would be a good fit, send an email to the hiring manager with a 1 to 2 paragraph cover letter style message. In this message, you'll explain who you are, why you're interested in the position, and briefly, why you think you make a strong candidate. Also, be sure to let them know that you're registered with SciTechsperience and saw their posting on the SciTechsperience job board. Attach a PDF of your resume in the email. Even though hiring managers can view your resume on the SciTechsperience website, by attaching the resume in your email, you'll make their job easier and set yourself apart. Feel free to ask the hiring manager when you can expect to hear back and what the next steps are for their hiring process. And if you don't hear anything after roughly 7 to 10 days, you may follow up with a polite email or phone call checking in about the status of your application. If you're offered an interview, you want to be sure you're fully prepared. This can seem daunting, but with a bit of forethought and preparation, you'll be ready to go. So here are a few tips to get you ready for interviews. First, think about how you'll answer basic questions such as, what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? Or describe a time when you faced a challenge and how you overcame it. You don't need to memorize your stories word for word, and you'll sound like a robot if you do, but you'll be glad if you've thought about them ahead of time. And a quick Google search of common behavioral interview questions will yield a list of questions that you might look through and then prepare your answers for. Also, think about how you'll connect your personal experiences with the description and qualifications for the job you're applying to. Think about why are you, specifically, a good fit, and how do your experiences demonstrate that? Prepare questions for the hiring manager. This shows that you've done your research and are genuinely curious about the position and the work that the organization does. Now this one's very important. Whether it's a Skype interview or an in-person interview, be sure to arrive on time and be dressed appropriately. Arriving late or failing to dress for the occasion can be enough to put you out of the running for a position. A friend of ours works as a recruiter at a large corporation. Her window overlooks the visitors' parking lot at her building, and she's seen candidates running into the building at the last minute, fixing their ties and combing their hair. Don't let that be you. Give yourself a cushion of time so you won't have to rush on your way to the interview. It's also helpful to look at a map of where the company is located the day before your interview. That way, navigating and parking won't add an unnecessary layer of stress on your interview day. Next, take advantage of your career services staff. You're lucky to have a team of professionals at your disposal who are trained to help you prepare for interviews, polish your resume, and get ready for the application process. We urge you to make use of this resource, and I think you'll be really glad if you do. And finally, we have resources available for you on the SciTechsperience website. We'll share links to these resources later in the webinar and in the follow-up email. Are there any other questions at this time? Feel free to chime in the questions box, and Becky will share your questions with me. So, if all goes well, you'll be offered an internship. That's fantastic, and let's talk about some strategies for making the most of your internship experience. Once the internship begins, here are a few things to keep in mind. As a general rule, ask lots of questions, particularly if you're stuck. You may feel like you're bothering your supervisor, but they would much rather spend a few minutes helping you through a problem than pay you to sit and stare at your screen for hours. Don't be afraid to share your perspective. One of the main reasons companies hire interns in the first place is to add a fresh perspective, which you'll have, to their team. So be sure to contribute your new ideas and critiques of the company's existing processes. Keep track of the skills you're building, lessons you're learning, and experiences you're having. You'll be glad you did this later on when you're updating your resume and trying to remember exactly what it was you learned or what the problem was that you overcame on a particular project. Next, get to know your coworkers. One of the most valuable and rewarding parts of an internship is having the chance to network with professionals in your industry. Strike up conversations in the break room and ask about their career paths, role at the company, and any advice they might have for someone like you who is just starting out their career in this industry. And finally, remember that internships, in a sense, are extended on-the-job interviews. Be sure you always show up with energy and ready to work so your employer will have a good impression of you. Now let's move on to the end of the internship. At the end of the internship, be sure to ask your supervisor for an exit interview. An exit interview is a great chance to ask for feedback about your performance as an intern, and in some cases to provide feedback to the employer about their internship program. You'll always learn something valuable and identify areas where you can focus on improving. As soon as you can, update your resume. Like I alluded to earlier, the longer you wait, the less vivid your memories will be, and you'll have a much harder time describing your experiences in detail. At the end of August, you'll receive a short survey from the SciTechsperience team. We ask that you take a few minutes to complete the survey, which is crucial for assessing and improving our program. You'll be entered into a raffle when you submit your survey and will be up for some fantastic prizes. Our program year restarts each year on September 1st. If you haven't already graduated, you can reactivate your SciTech account by emailing me a PDF of your updated transcript. And employers are looking for interns year-round, so keep that in mind as well. And it looks like we've got a couple questions coming in, so I'm going to note those and I will get to them as soon as I can at the end of this slide. So finally, what I'd like to encourage you to do is remember to stay in touch with your employer. If the internship went well, they'll be a great reference for you in the future, and you'll want to maintain the positive relationship that you've built with them during your internship. So let's see, we've got a question coming in, and the question is, what if the company doesn't give you any information on your application for 3 weeks? And that's a great question. So something to keep in mind with the companies in the SciTechsperience program is that these are small companies who may not have a big HR team. They may not have a whole team of people to field through applications. So like I mentioned in my earlier slide, a friendly follow-up email or a phone call can be really effective. And that's something that you can do after a week and again after 2 weeks. Another thing I would say is check the SciTechsperience job board to make sure that that job you're applying to is still posted. If it's not still on the job board, chances are the position has been filled and there's no longer a chance to be considered for that position. And finally, if you have a really difficult time getting a hold of an employer, even after following up, shoot me an email and let me know. I can take a look into the situation and see whether there might be something going on. So thanks for that question. That's a great question, and I'm sure you're not the only one who has that question. So let's move on to some frequently asked questions. Number one, what if I don't find what I'm looking for on the SciTechsperience job board? So if you don't find what you're looking for on the SciTech job board, there are two things I would suggest. First, check back regularly and scan the list of new jobs that I send out each week. There are new jobs being posted on a daily basis, and in the spring, there are sometimes dozens of new jobs being posted each week. If you don't see something you're interested in today, it doesn't mean you won't next week. Second, you can refer companies to the program as long as they meet the program eligibility requirements. If, for example, you're looking for an internship in a very specific STEM field but are not finding anything on the job board, you can hunt for companies yourself and contact them. Imagine how excited an employer will be if you ask them to hire you as an intern and let them know that your wages will be 50% off. Our next frequently asked question, am I eligible for an internship after graduation? So great question, and if you register with SciTechsperience prior to graduating, you will be eligible for an internship the summer following your graduation. For example, if you're graduating this May, you'll need to register with the program before graduation, but you will be eligible for internships through the summer of 2017. Am I limited to one internship through SciTechsperience each year? And yes, our program year runs from September to the end of August, and unfortunately you are only eligible to accept one internship through the program each year during that time frame. So a good thing to keep in mind if you're considering an internship during the school year, just note you won't be eligible for an internship during the summer of that same program year, so a great question and something certainly to keep in mind. Is it too late to find an internship for the summer of 2017? Absolutely not. It is not too late whatsoever. This year we have funding to support at least 250 internships in total, and as of today, April 12th, there are still roughly 125 spots remaining. So like I mentioned, there are about 114 active positions posted on the site with new ones coming in every day. And with 125 spots remaining, it is absolutely not too late to find an internship for this summer. And our final FAQ, are there any costs to participate in the SciTechsperience program? No, there are no costs at all, and I really want to reiterate that this program is completely free for both students and employers, and there are no fees at any time. The only investment you'll make is a few minutes of time to register and create a profile, and the time it takes to reach out to employers. So no fees at any time. So that brings us to the end of our formal presentation, but I want to give you the chance to ask any other questions that you might have. So if there are any other questions, now is your chance to type them into the questions tab on the right side of the screen. Becky, like I said, is monitoring the questions box, and we will be happy to take any other questions that you have at this time. And it looks like no questions coming in at this point. So if you have any questions, get them in quickly before the end of the webinar. And feel free to keep typing a question if you're in the process. And while you're doing that, I will mention a few additional resources that we have on how to prepare effectively for interviews and prepare your resume for a job application. So these links will be shared in the follow-up email that you'll all receive tomorrow, and you should absolutely check them out. And over the course of the next couple of months, we'll be publishing additional resources on the new SciTechsperience Spotlight blog, so feel free to check those out as well. And it looks like we still don't have any questions coming in, so we are going to conclude today's webinar. I want to thank all of you for joining us today. Our contact information is on the screen, and you can always feel free to reach us at scitechmn.org or by phone or email. You can also follow us on Twitter. Our Twitter handle is on the screen at SciTechMN. And also, please find us on LinkedIn and Facebook by searching for the SciTechsperience Internship Program. Thanks again for joining us today. Please stay in touch and have a great day.